It's cathartic work, blacksmithing, and what's catharticism means? It's peaceful. My father used to come down here because he would get away from it all. It was in the backyard. He had a stressful job. He drove from Hartford every single day. He was taking care of his mother. He had kids that were rowdy. So this was a place, a man cave, that Dave said. He could just come and relax and not worry about anything and just tinker. And he joined a group called the Clinker Tinkers because there was no internet. It started out as a tool collection. And then he learned how to blacksmith on his own. And he slowly started getting different pieces as he learned more and more. He got the bellows, which you see here, which he replaced all the leather on. And there were actually 3 times as many tools in here. And there was a gigantic, like, witch hat.
Yes.
And that thing weighed a ton. And there was a giant grinder over here, which Kevin Bob's an engine that turned the grinder, an old steam engine. So it was like a metalworking shop, but it was mainly a blacksmith shop. And he didn't do it for profit. He did it for fun and enjoyment, and he made a lot of items. Melissa has at the condo. And part of his character was that he was a World War II sailor, so he would never give up. So one day he came home with these big stones in his truck, and he said, "Greg, we got to move these stones." I go, "Why?" He goes, we grabbed this big drop cloth, and we put the stone, let it drop on the cloth. And then we dragged it down through the yard like this. And we did this about 10 times. I don't know how many stones there are.
They go all the way around.
They go all the way around.
And these, I think, were extra ones that never made it down the hill. I think they were on the side of the driveway.
Right.
So they were.
So there was dirt in our back, in the woods in our yard. There wasn't concrete like they poured here. But I said to him, "Dad, are we almost done?" And he said, "No, don't give up the ship. Remember, the destroyer escort, we don't give up the ship. We stay the course." So we dragged everything down there, and he goes, "Now, Greg, I'm going to build a post and beam construction Revolutionary War era blacksmith barn." And my reply was, "Great, Dad. Are we done?" And he said, "Yeah, go ahead." So I took off, and I really didn't pay attention. I was just a kid. But he worked really hard on it. And he always said Revolutionary War because he didn't want any electrical, no power at all. So you can imagine in the middle of the night, he's got a kerosene lamp, he's got the forge giving him light, and you just hear in the backyard, tink, tink, tink. He's working down there, he's fine, leave him alone, doesn't want to be bothered. Right, miss?
Yeah.
So, when my kids were little, they used to come over to Granby and Grampy's house, and they used to like ringing that bell, because there's the rope. They would ring the bell.
My granddaughter was here an hour ago ringing the heck out of it.
Yeah, we can ring it later. All the kids can ring the bell. But he didn't want the kids touching anything, because at the time there were 3 times as many tools in here. So you can imagine, everything was just tools. You couldn't walk. You had to just squeeze in around, and he kept collecting and collecting and collecting. And he'd go to yard sales and buy tools. You would go to auctions and buy tools. It never ended. And some of the tools you did, "Dad, what does this tool do?" And he said, "Well, that's a tool." He knew what every tool did. Like he goes, "That's a pig pulling tool. You pull a pig with it." I'm like, all right, how did he know that? Another thing that he did was he had a lot of old tools, like I said, and my grandfather's tools. He would show me, and he said, "Greg, in those days, if you didn't have tools, you didn't eat." Because this was pre-Depression. Because he grew up in the Depression, and his grandfather was before that. They were farmers from Canada, and they were carpenters, and my father learned all the trades, carpentry, plumbing. But blacksmithing, there were no blacksmiths in our family. Now, you think blacksmithing, you think horseshoes, which is perfect here. But he didn't do horseshoes. He had a lot of horseshoes. Here's some of them here. He had probably 100 of these, and he had about 300 railroad spikes. They were all over the yard. In the woods, you'd like mow the lawn, and all of a sudden you'd hit a railroad spike, break the blade. Well, because my kids would play with the railroad spikes and leave them in the yard. Of course, he got upset about that, but the railroad spikes were made of iron, and you could hammer them down and make different things out of them. So he probably got those for free. And he probably said, "Hey, here comes that guy that collects railroad spikes, that crazy guy. What's he going to do with them?" So there was. I always tell people at his eulogy, I said, "Dad was into heavy metal." Because I'm into heavy metal. I'm a musician. But his metal was heavy, heavy metal, like steel and copper. And after he passed away, I went down in the woods and I found about $1,600 worth of copper buried under the ground. And I took it to Broad Street to Liberty Recycling. My mother got $1,600. I made a lot of trips with scrap metal. And when he was sick, he had cancer at the end. He would sit up on the deck, and I actually always remember cleaning out Dad's shop because I still have tennis elbow. I still have pain in my elbow from that. From dragging huge pieces of metal up the yard into the truck to the recycling. So I'm carrying a piece of junk metal. He says, "Where are you going with that?" I go, "Well, I think you're not getting rid of that. I'm gonna make something out of it." He was still sick, so the name of his eulogy was Work in Progress. Because not only did he do blacksmithing, but he made birdhouses and he made a lot of other different items. And he gave me a blacksmith shop, which is about probably the mini scale of this. The forge is about that big, and I got an anvil that's about a quarter size of that. Now I take it to, I do Civil War reenacting in Florida. It's big down there. I'm in the 2nd Florida. So I bring out the small forge and the anvil and the tools, and I set them out at camp. And the people come by at the reenactments, and I said, well, they want to know what it's for. And I said, well, in the Civil War, they repaired wagon wheels. Because they were out in the field. If something broke, you had to fix it or you were stuck. And in the wagons, they towed all the supplies. And they had to shoe horses, and they made bullets out of lead in the forges. But Dad made, is there anything we can show him that he made?
Oh, everything.
Well, he made everything, but I mean anything. These are crude things. Like, he made a lot of little knick-knack hooks that my mother had them around to hang your keys on. This is just this, like, he made lamps, he made huge things.
Lots of hooks and
a
lot of tools. He would make his own tools. I mean, you talk about what is this for? I have no idea what this is.
He made that.
But he made it to do something.
Tools to fix tools.
I'm not sure I'll ever figure it out.
Yeah.
How would I know?
A lot of hearts.
Yeah.
Hearts was one of his things.
Oh.
Yeah, and the only other thing I wanted to mention was,
Most of his things are where he gave them to.
Yeah.
You know.
the main thing you could all take away with this is that my father would be really proud to have this here if he knew it was here. He never envisioned it would be anywhere. But he did label the pieces how they went together, and Melissa put them in a logbook, so when it was like a giant erector set.
Yeah, it's right here.
So
This
they
is
did,
Melissa's
this is the
book.
book. So
And
every piece
Every
is
piece
documented.
is numbered.
So that
And,
it went together.
And all the pictures to see how.
So if you guys want to borrow this thing,
Yeah, if anybody
build
wants it in their
From
yard.
this book, you could probably build one.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to build one.
And Dave is the one who put the pieces back together.
And Dave put them together. Now, a couple of funny things. In the wintertime, remember this was on the ground. The doors wouldn't open in the wintertime because they were frozen and you couldn't get them open. So some of the months of the year we couldn't even get in here. I think after he passed away, we didn't get in here for 2 years. So there was probably mice and all
Yeah, I
kinds.
was never here in here in
Yeah.
the winter at your house.
But Melissa has, if you want to email Melissa, she's got some beautiful pieces my father made. She'll share with you photographs of, if you're interested in the hobby. But the main thing is it's for kids and people that want to learn about what it was like in the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and what blacksmiths did. And I think it's a testimony to Dave and Shepard Meadows. Let's give them a round of applause. I've got to get back on a plane.